Okay students, welcome back to the lecture series of Advanced PHP. Today we are going to start with unit number 2, chapter 2, that is web techniques. The table content of this chapter is server information. Then we have processing form, self-processing form, sticky form and setting response header. The first topic of chapter number 2, that is server information. What is server? A server is a computer designed to process requests and deliver data to another computer over the internet or local network. A well-known type of server is a web server, where web pages can be accessed over the internet through a client like web browser. However, there are several types of servers, including local one like file server that stores information within an intranet network. Okay, so basically student, server is nothing but it is a central storage where all the information is stored by the client. The most common types of server that we have, first one, web server. A web server shows pages and runs apps through web browsers. The server your browser is connected to now is a web server that delivers this page and the image on it. The client program is this case is a browser like Chrome, Firefox, Opera or Safari. Second type of server, that is email server. Email server sends and receives email messages. If you have an email on your computer, the software connects to an IMAP or POP server to download your message from the computer, and your SMTP server sends the message back through the email server. File transfer server, that is FTP server. FTP server moves your file through file transfer protocol. Basically, it is a server that is accessible remotely using FTP client program, which connects to the file share on the browser through the server built-in FTP capabilities or with a dedicated FTP server program. Next one, we have identity server. Identity server supports login and security role from your authorized user. Next one we have, that is complete list of entries in a dollar server that comes from your CGI. Okay, we get the entry list basically like server name. A server name is a unique identifier for a server on a network. It is typically a combination of the server's host name and domain name, but can also include other information such as server operating system or server software version. So basically server name will give you the name of the server, also it will give you which operating system is in the server and also the version of that particular operating system. Next one, we have server software. Server software is a software designed to be used, operated and managed on a computing server. It provides and promotes the utilization of the computing power of the underlying server of a series of computing services and functions. Next one, we have server interface. Server interface are F ports on the access switch that connects to the end of devices. For example, server 2. Server protocol, the name and revision of the request protocol, for example HTTP 1.1. Server port, the server port number to which the request was sent, example 80. Request method, the method the client used to fetch the documents, for example we have get or post method that we have studied in PHP. Path info, extra path element given by the client, for example list, user, etc. Path translated. Path translated is a dollar server in an environment variable which gets imported by PHP into the dollar server variable using super global following some standard rules. So the variable is similarly if not identically named. Next one, we have server script name. The URL path to the current page, which is useful for referencing script, for example menu.php. Query string, everything after the URL, for example the things that we give in the URL, example name. Remote host, a remote host was almost always a single centralized computer system that was accessed using terminals directly connected or over private lines or via dial-up modems. Remote address, if the client is using a proxy server, however that may be proxy IP address instead of client IP. Remote address is an env returned by the server and available to server-side scripts application, not the client browser. In PHP, you can use something like $server to obtain the IP address of the client. Authorization type, the type of authorization used to execute command can be controlled with author type. Parameter which accepts the value, key or login. The value of key is set by default when your authorization type has the value of key. Like before, the CLI will auto discover a suitable policy when interacting with your IoT hub. Remote user, if the page is password protected, this is username with which the client authenticates, for example FRED. Note that there is no way to find out password was used. Remote identity, if the server is configured to use identification checks this from the host that made the web request. Next one we have, that is content type. The content type of the information attached to query, such as put and post. Content length, the length of the information attached to query, such as put and post. So students, basically we have seen what is server, different types of server that we have, like web server, email server, FTP server, identity server. Again we have seen the complete list that comes under your $server, which is basically from your CGI. We have seen different things in this. So student, we will just stop session 1 right now. We will continue processing form in your session 2. Thank you.